It's time for my April 2021 performance figures for our solar PV Tesla Powerwall 2 performance here in the UK, along with our Tesla Model 3 and Hyundai Kona electric costs and usage. So stay tuned. Hi, John here and welcome. It's been a mixed month. We've had snow, we've had sunshine, we've had cloud, and we've certainly had cold. In fact, here in the UK, we've had the lowest average minimum temperature for April since 1922. Source of that is the Met Office. However, I guess there is a positive that there was lots of clear skies, which gave us the opportunity for lots of sunshine. The UK experienced its second sunniest April on record, even sunnier than the bumper 2020, again according to the Met Office. However, as you'll see in a minute, it wasn't such a bumper month of sunshine compared to our 2020 solar generation totals. As ever, in the description down below is a list of all of our components of our system. So have a look down there if you're not familiar with our setup, configuration, location in the UK and the like. Please comment, like and share. As always, these actions help get this video shown to more people on YouTube, which in turn helps my channel grow. Thank you in advance for your support in doing that. What else happened in April? Actually, quite a lot. I organised to get our television aerial moved, something I've been meaning to do for a while. Some of you may recall that the position is directly above one of the solar panels and the birds use it as a dumping ground, quite literally. A local aerial chap in the next village moved it for me and put it on a new galvanised bracket. The next day after it had been moved, it rained overnight and then again in the early hours of the morning. It was great timing for me to then set about giving that one panel a good clean with my telescopic extendable brush. I wanted to wait for rain to soften the bird poo, as it can get really baked on and prove tricky to remove. After the panel was cleaned, there's a marked improvement, not only in looks but also in performance of that panel. It's more effective, and now it's up to the same level as the other 5 panels. Before, it was consistently producing sort of 15 to 20% less power than the other panels. Earlier in the month, I'd already washed all of the panels and removed the algae that had been building up and growing on those panels. So yeah, every little helps. Another job I tackled was replacing all the rubber window gaskets on 16 openers of our UPVC double glazed windows. It turned into a really leisurely 2-day job in glorious sunshine. I removed the old gasket, which was a simple push fit into a groove in the window and window frame. I cleaned the area, cut and fit the new slightly thicker gasket. It was a really easy job and can be done from the inside of the house for all of our windows. It's actually made a great difference to all the windows and reduced the drafts that we had. There are still a couple of windows that leak a bit, but it's much better than it was. And they certainly do, and they'll certainly do whilst we work towards replacing all of the windows with better thermally insulated versions at a later date. I also went round the outside of the house and blocked up a few holes that I discovered. When we had our extension built, the waste pipe from the kitchen had not been sealed, nor the overflow for the water softener unit. So I set about sealing those on the outside as well as on the inside walls. Again, a big difference in reducing drafts. There are a few smaller gaps that I spotted and plugged those too whilst I had the sealant in hand, so to speak. I also added another 6 rolls of loft insulation into our loft, and we now have a minimum of 300mm depth over the whole loft space. I was mindful not to block the air circulation in the soffits, as ours is a cold roof space and needs that ventilation. also not insulating under the cold water storage tank, as it needs some heat to prevent it from freezing in extreme cold conditions. However, I did insulate around it, as there were massive gaps in the timber framework where heat would escape into the loft space. And it's the same with the downlighters. We've got 3 downlighters on our landing, and they just let heat escape if they're not sealed. You can't have insulation over the top of them, as it's a fire risk and against building regs. So I purchased 3 caps, which allows you to have insulation running over the top, and again prevents heat escaping into the loft space through them. In other news, we have a new EV in the street. Our neighbour have a brand new black Mini EV, which they absolutely love. It replaced their previous petrol Mini. They don't have solar panels or charge point yet, so I've actually offered the use of mine if they need it. Currently they're charging it on the granny cable. It's their second car, so it's going to use it for school runs and local trips, that kind of thing. But the car really looks great in black, and it's got yellow wing mirrors as accents. But it's great to see people choosing electric options. So yeah, 3 electric cars in the street now, out of 28 houses. So 2 houses with 26 without. So moving that way. What else happened? Yeah, I did say it was a busy month. We had our gas meter exchanged on the 26th of April. Engineer from AES arrived at 8 AM sharp. Listened as I recounted the backstory on why we had an unusual electric meter. His words, not mine. I explained that after 4 visits, the gas meters had still not been commissioned. It was installed back in the 30th of November 2020. Long story short, he tried to commission the current gas meter and it just wouldn't join the electric meter. He then chose to install a new gas meter, which also failed to join with the electric meter network, which means we still have a non-commissioned meter. Then the stock phrase, our systems are down, so I can't do anything, came about. Getting used to that. And in case you're thinking it's perhaps something to do with our odd location or what have you, our gas meter is less than 6 feet away from our electric meter on the same run of exterior wall, as you can see here in this photo. The nearest meter is the gas meter in this photo, with the electric meter box just beyond. And that grey box in the photo is the Tesla Powerwall Gateway 1 that you can see. The engineer's solution was to recommend a swap of our gas and electric meter. He proposed an EDMI electric meter after I refused an LNG E470 model due to the incompatibility with our Powerwall. He showed me the meter he recommended, as he had one on his van. He was on site with the equipment, but he would not complete the job. He'd apparently been on site for an hour, which was the time allocated for the job. He said he would record the outcome in the notes against the job. I asked what were the next steps. Would this job be automatically booked in by AES? And the answer, no. I have to contact Octopus Energy to book in another visit. Just talk about inefficiency, non-cost effective service. No first time fix mentality there. What else? Oh, last bit. Finally, we got a letter from Hyundai saying that our Kona is in the batch that needs to have a new battery swap. I booked it in with them as per their instructions and wait for a date for them to do it. I believe it has to go to Dartford or somewhere and be there for a few days whilst we have a loaner. I'll update you more when I know more about that process. So that's all that's been happening. Let's move on and talk about solar and battery stats for the month of April, shall we? On the 28th of April, we ticked over 40 megawatt hours of solar generation from our original 4 kilowatt array. 40 megawatts of electricity that we have generated on site from our roof for ourselves, or given some of it back to the grid in the form of excess generation that we couldn't use. And some naysayers state solar in the UK just doesn't work. 40 megawatts in just over 10 years, 4 megawatts a year, just from one solar array. I think I could start my own solar farm. Okay, back to Earth for a minute, John. April 2021. We produced a total of 849 kilowatt hours from our two separate PV arrays. We had an average daily solar generation of 28.3 kilowatt hours for the month. We were fairly close to the April 2020 total of 934. But yeah, that was the start of lockdown and was a stunning month. So I was pleased to be fairly close to that. So down below, please drop your generation totals and solar array size in the comments down below. As always, your input provides a great comparison for other people, and I also like to see them. So thank you for doing that in advance. Our 4 kilowatt array produced 532 kilowatt hours, and our newer 2.34 kilowatt array produced 317 kilowatt hours. You can clearly see the month by month jump in solar generation between March and April. May, hopefully, should be even higher. Fingers crossed. Let's look at how we fared with our self-power during the month. We were self-powered from the Powerwall and solar contributions for 77% of the time. As you can see in this stacked chart, 55% came from solar generation and 22% came from Powerwall contributions. There's no peak or off-peak data for this month. Why, I hear you ask? I moved the Tesla Powerwall off cost-saving mode and onto self-powered mode. And this mode does away with the peak and off-peak settings in the app and therefore on the data charts. To give you a sort of full disclosure, I've been bouncing between self-power and cost-saving mode during the last week of April. It was sort of sunny for most of the day, and I would have been in self-powered mode. That way it reduced the grid pull to absolute minimum over the course of the day and evening. It will only use grid if there's insufficient solar activity or the battery cannot supply the load required by the house. However, to ensure that we have enough reserve left in the battery to get through the agile peak period slot between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on the less sunny days, I've been swapping back to cost-saving mode in the middle of the day if the solar activity is limited or not consistent throughout the day to make sure that the battery is charged. And you'll see that in a bit when we come to look at the day-by-day chart. However, to give you a flavour of a few sunny days followed by a not so sunny day. So for instance, on Saturday the 24th of April, we pulled just 500 watts from the grid and our house usage was 29.4 kilowatt hours. Sunday the 25th, we pulled 900 watts from the grid and our house usage was 32 kilowatt hours. Monday the 26th, we pulled 700 watts from the grid and our house usage was 38.7 kilowatt hours. And then counter that with Tuesday the 27th of April, we pulled 6.6 kilowatt hours from the grid for our house usage of 20.3 kilowatt hours. So that's me bouncing about. So the 27th I would have been in cost saving mode, whereas the other 3 days I was in self-powered mode. This chart compares the months of April from 2012 to 2021. Values from 2020 onwards are for both arrays, whereas before then they are just for the single 4 kilowatt array. If you recall, the original 4 kilowatt array produced 532 kilowatt hours, whilst the new array achieved 317 to make that 849 total you see there. The Powerwall had an 88% round trip efficiency for the month for what it managed to store versus what it was able to supply. We stored 248 kilowatts into the battery and supplied 218. Lower figures from the previous months due to the increase in solar activity production. This chart gives you a little bit more detail on what happens day by day. The legend, as always, is blue is house usage, yellow is solar generation, orange is export to the grid, and red is import from the grid. Solar activity was good. So 7 days across the month where we generated over 40 kilowatt hours in a single day. Our lowest generation figure for a single day was 8.2 kilowatt hours on the 1st of April. And there were only 2 days in the month where we generated less than 10 kilowatt hours of solar during the day. You can now start to see the solar peaking above the blue column, which is the house usage. That's great to see, although it does mean that we would have been giving excess solar back to the grid because we couldn't make use of it. Considering the amount of solar we produce, the export figure is actually very low, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. But let's have a quick overview of that before we get into the detail of those charts. So this is the 4 data sources we've just looked at in a day-by-day chart. House usage shown in blue is the key one, and to focus on here, it's 1027.2 kilowatt hours, just over a megawatt, which is up on March's total of 980 kilowatt hours. Export was 96.7 kilowatt hours over the course of the month, and import was 257 kilowatt hours. And let's just have a look at those figures in a little bit more detail. So this is our average daily house usage and our average daily grid usage over the months. Our average daily house usage was slightly up against March's figure at 34.2 kilowatt hours on average each day. That's the blue line. The good news is that although we use more electricity, our daily average pull from the grid has plummeted to 8.6 kilowatt hours a day from 17.7 kilowatt hours in March. It's a 50% reduction, and that's indicated by the red line. We sent 97 kilowatt hours of excess solar generation back to the grid in April, much better than April 2020, where we were hemorrhaging, that's difficult to say, hemorrhaging excess electricity. This chart shows what we pulled from the grid each month. In April, we slashed the amount we pulled to 257 kilowatt hours, as you've just seen, again, a 50% reduction. We used just over 1 megawatt of electricity during the month, with only 25% of that coming from the grid. The rest was supplied by solar. This is the eddy. With the eddy, I increased the thermostat temperature of our immersion heater in the hot water cylinder from 65 degrees to 70. We only use surplus solar to power the immersion heater, and what that has meant that we have been able to use more of the solar rather than exporting to the grid. And you can see here that's reflected in the figures. So 53 kilowatt hours for the month against 27 kilowatt hours in March. I've mentioned this before, but the totals in this table are rounded up in case you're doing the maths on the totals there. So the figures shown in the cumulative columns reflect the readings shown in the eddy screen, as you can see there. Finally, the cars. The Tesla Model 3 covered 706 miles during the month, bringing its total mileage to 10,205 miles. No issues or problems with it during the month. We did 3 supercharging sessions where we added a total of 123.9 kilowatt hours. There was no cost for these charging sessions, thanks to those kind individuals who used our Tesla referral code when ordering their cars. They got 1,000 free supercharging miles, as did we. So thank you to those of you who have used our code. Hopefully some of you will also use it in the future when you place your order. Home charging on the Tesla added 172.33 kilowatt hours, of which 100% of it was from excess solar. As you can see, 61% of our total charging for the month, that's 178.34 kilowatt hours, was free electricity. And that's actually meant the 706 miles covered in the Tesla during the month has actually cost us nothing. Free supercharging and free charging at home. The Kona covered 320 miles in the month and now has a total mileage of 11,500 590. All charging was done at home, where we added 177.03 via the Eddi, Zeppi even, not the Eddi. The 320 miles covered in the Kona during the month cost us £0.02 per mile. It was more expensive than the Model 3 because we didn't manage to bag any free solar whilst we were charging the Kona. So just the way it was, I guess. However, it was at cheap, agile rates when we did actually charge. So to do the calculation, I've actually used the average rate over the course of the month. So it's not really 100% reflective of the actual costs. It's a little overinflated, the information I've given you there. So the £6.42 for 117 kilowatt hours of electricity at average cost of 0.1147 pence per kilowatt hour for the month is actually a little bit more than it would have been. Anyway, that's your lot. So please comment, like, share. All of those actions help get this video shown to more people on YouTube, which in turn helps my channel grow. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video. All right, take care. Bye.